How are you doing tonight? Is everybody happy? Good. It's nice to see all of you. If you can't hear me, raise your hand. I do have a very strong voice, but I don't want to blast you out. As Shane said, I have, well, he didn't say this, but I'm going to tell you now, I have 30 years in media, broadcast media, news broadcast media. I even have a little stint in Hollywood. So I know something about being in the belly of the beast. And at first I liked it. And then I didn't like it. Because when you're young, you think you're going to be really famous all of a sudden, and you're going to think you're very impressive and important and all of that. And sometimes you can lose your conservative values. I didn't. But it's very easy to be sucked into a liberal point of view. So I want to spend a little time with you telling you about why that is. Why are we faced with a large media that is so liberal? Especially the news media. Forget Hollywood, they're wacko. Let's talk about the news media. Why is the news media so damn liberal? All right, I'm going to challenge you with this question. What does news mean? Raise your hand if you know what the word news means. Scared, bad.
History.
History. I'm sorry?
North, east, west, south.
North, east, west, south. That's over my pay grade. I'm not sure what that means. What does news mean? Current events. Now we're getting warm. What does current events mean? What's happening now? What drives what's happening now? Getting warmer, getting warmer. Actual facts, I'm afraid not. I love you, honey. I'm wearing your thing, but you're wrong. It's not the actual facts. All right. News is what is different. Think about that. It's what is different. So today, sadly, we see videotape of a man who is burned alive. Sadly, that's different. In fact, if that comes to the United States of America, we will revolt, starting with the Tea Party groups. Yesterday, what was different? Beheadings. But now we've seen maybe a dozen of them, the ones that they do show us, or if you go online and see the internet, and it's becoming a little commonplace because this administration just goes, oh well, right? They don't even call terror terror. So as you go through the thoughts of how to approach the media, remember, the media is about what is the news media, about what is different. Different. Okay, hold that thought for just a minute. Remember back in 6th grade, maybe 5th grade, you learned about the number line? Remember in math, the number line? So let's say I'm in the center of the room right here, and I'm 0 on the number line. And here's to the left, right, because I'm using my left hand, right? And I'm going to go back to 0. And here's to the right, because I'm using my right hand, right? And you have these integers, right? If you look at current events and movements in time, think of what is different and put it mentally on the number line. Beheadings, not caring about that, that seems kind of left of center. Mom apple pie and the red, white, and blue, that seems sort of on the right, doesn't it? Maybe more Republican or constitutional ideas. Hold that thought. It used to be, when I was growing up, that the left and the right were more like a bell-shaped curve that came together and skewed a little over here on the right, my right. Late 50s. And then we had things like Oh, the drumbeat to Vietnam and the sexual revolution and burning of the bra and Jane Fonda in Hanoi. Things like that. And it would be what's different. So we would get news that was on the left of the center. And we would have to go, well, that's kind of strange. That's different. And pretty soon, the bell-shaped curve, ladies and gentlemen, moves to the left. And today, I don't even recognize the Democrat Party because they're way over here. And what drives that? News that is different. Because we have a 24/7 news cycle. So one day it's ISIS chopping heads off. The next day it's the State of the Union speech. Wait a minute, we had ISIS chopping heads off. Oh no, we're gonna look over here now. And they feed you and feed you and feed you because we have things called cable and the internet and all these options to get your information. And you can't process half of it. I'm in the game, I can't process half of it. So for civilians, I can't imagine how you process it. When you go to work in your small businesses or you're raising families, heck, I sit in front of a computer all day long and it's just coming at me 24/7. And most of it, to outshine what just happened, is another different event that moves us even more edgy, even more unusual, even more different. So where's the bell-shaped curve now, ladies and gentlemen? Pretty much skewing left. Okay? And who's the oddball? People on the right. The minorities over here. Everybody with me? This is what has happened probably in the last 30 to 40 years. Now, the pendulum does swing because we get this far to the left, and then what's going to happen? It's like a rubber band. At some point, it's going to trapeze way over here again. And that's what I see happening in movements such as Tea Party movements, constitutionalists, people that get back to the glue that brought us together in the first place with our founding fathers. Are you with me? All right. So where are we? It's important to understand that the nation is left because the media constantly feeds what's going to drive the ratings. And if you just sit down and you just look in the last week, how many things might you have missed? Probably a lot. Did they cover it? Yes, but only for one day. Was it horrific? Pretty much. Pretty much. Why is it horrific? Because they got to be edgy, because they want to grab you. They want to grab you for the moment because they're competing. And so anything that is a little not Mom Apple Pie and the red, white, and blue and Ozzie and Harriet is not edgy enough because it's not different enough. Have you looked at all of the sex and filth that is now commonplace? It's omnipresent, and we ought to be ashamed. Have you looked at the dumbing down of our children with Common Core and other things of lowering the level to a common denominator, to use another math idea? Have you noticed the laissez-faire attitude about the border? Have you noticed Republican candidates that say they're GOP and they're all about liberal ideas? Why? Because the whole nation has skewed left, ladies and gentlemen. And in large measure, the beast of ABC, NBC, CBS, and then over time we've got MSNBC, the big three, the alphabet networks, and I worked for an affiliate. I have seen news stories that are there to grab your attention, and I go, I got to read this at 11 o'clock at night? Better that I read it at 11 rather than 6 when the kids are up. And it was shocking, and it continues to be shocking. Anything that grabs your attention is going to continue to keep us on the left with regard to the news media. Almost anything goes now because they're selling this idea. Now, that's the background. So where's our bell-shaped curve? Pretty much over here. Now I want to introduce and challenge you with a third concept and then maybe a fourth before we have our questions and before Tammy comes up. When people say, we got to get along with them, I wince, I cringe, because I don't even recognize how far to the left it is, ladies and gentlemen. It's not how I grew up. My dad was an Air Force pilot, career military, decorated by 4 countries. He was a glider pilot during World War II. And he did 5 missions, and God had a guardian angel on his shoulder. He fathered 7 children, raised us with God and country. That was the glue. I grew up on bases all over the world. Very transient, so no wonder I went into broadcasting, because broadcasting is transient, right? It's what I knew. It was mom apple pie and the red, white, and blue and the do's and the don'ts. It wasn't this mealy-mouthed kind of maybe this, maybe that, let's just massage it, as the media is feeding stories to grab you so that they can get ratings. Don't lose hope. The more this happens, the more the people will rise up. Shane, thank you. And it's happening. Shane might have heard of something called the Hegelian dialectic without getting too lofty. He was a philosopher that was a precursor to Karl Marx. And he said, when you have pendulums swinging, you have the antithesis of what you know, and then people swing back, and then you have a new thesis. And that's how it goes, just like in physics. It swings back. So have faith. We're moving back to the right so that our bell-shaped curve will be a little smaller. And then when they talk about those good old blue dog Democrats and those capitalists with compassion Republicans, because we only really have 2 parties that are recognized in Washington, I'm sad to say, libertarians and Tea Party people. I mean, who are they? This administration kind of acts like, well, we don't have to spend any time with them. But at least with the 2 parties, we'll have a tighter bell-shaped curve so that then negotiations and business can get done on both sides of the aisle. Right now, we have a flatline Congress and a president, regrettably, that believes in the power of the pen to order the entire nation and indeed the world around. Sad. I've got a lot more to say. We'll save some of it for the question and answer period, but just put that in your noggin. News is what is different. So if they can sell you on something different, if they can, and a lot of times it's sensational, a lot of times it's, oh, the sky is falling. A lot of times it is, oh, your daughters are where? You know? The language has gotten very base. Everything is ready for the Armageddon. They're selling you, selling you, selling. They're not reporting on groups like this that are grassroots looking for how to make it better and get back to real principles. I don't see any news media here tonight covering this. I can see why. But it's because they would rather do, if it bleeds, it leads, sex, violence, commonality, not extolling the individual God-created person. And God forbid they ever mention the Constitution. That's passé. It's whatever Obama or whoever's in power may want at that time. It's what's different, and we need to move the bell-shaped curve back to the right and tighten it up. Okay, we'll take more questions about that, and I've got some other things to say when we have the Q&A period.